So much photography advice today focuses on the how. How should I compose my photos? How do I color grade them? How do I pose people? Hardly anyone seems interested in the why of photography. That's a shame, because asking yourself why you're taking a photo and then letting that intention shape your creative process, well, that can add meaning to your photos. It's definitely helped me grow as a photographer, but it's done more than that. It's changed the way I think about photography. Don't get me wrong, learning the how is still important. It helps to have a solid grasp of visual language, of line, shape, color, form, all those things. I just think that when you let an intention guide your visual language, that's when the really cool stuff happens. You can make a good analogy with language here. We value individuals who carefully consider their thoughts before they speak them, whose intentions are set before they utter a single word. On the other hand, someone who speaks before they think, well, their opinions tend to hold a little less sway. The why matters. An intention should shape how you express yourself. In photography, intention is conveyed through the placement of visual elements rather than words, but it's the same principle. You're just communicating in visual language instead of English. Once you've chosen an intention, you can then filter every creative decision through it. Do this, and your photos will stop being about, well, whatever you pointed your camera at. Instead, they'll become an interpretation of the way you felt in that moment. The reason all this stuff is on my mind at the moment is because someone sent me a photo a while back, this photo. It's a portrait I made with my friend Linda, Mexica, but this one's tattooed on someone's arm. It's pretty wild, but it's not the first. I've been sent a bunch of these since then. Tattoos at first, and then murals. More recently, a motorbike gang asking if they could use this image on their leather jackets. I just love that they asked me at all. My Mexica series, and more recently my portraits of charros and escaramuzas, have resonated with people in a way that my photos have never really done before. And I think a small part of that is the intentionality behind these compositions. When you make a photo with intention, you're taking something you're passionate about and then trying to communicate that to others. Get it right, and in my experience anyway, people engage more with it. They connect emotionally to the photo. And we can all interpret visual language. We do it all the time. Take a look at this trailer. As you watch, you'll notice, consciously and subconsciously, visual clues that will give you context. The square aspect ratio, the black and white grading, these imply that it's an art house film rather than the blockbuster. The low perspective and the equally low-key lighting tells us this is a thriller, maybe even a horror film. These visual clues and many more tell you how you're going to feel about the film. And the visuals are easy to interpret here because they were created with intention. An intention can be anything really, a mood, a feeling, an event, a story. What's actually important is that it gives you something to guide your creative decisions going forward. To some of you, this will sound super obvious, but it wasn't to me. I really struggled with making creative decisions, with being creative full stop. I just didn't know where creativity was meant to come from. Choosing light setups, poses, locations, lenses, all these choices intimidated the hell out of me. And it's because I had nothing to guide me with those decisions. But if you look through the filter of an intention, then suddenly you have way fewer choices. This photo is based on a tragic Mexican myth, Popo and Itza. It's a story similar to Romeo and Juliet in some ways, and this is the scene where the male protagonist is mourning the death of his lover. So to make this image work, I had to answer questions like, which pose will best communicate such an intense moment? And this is a fairly dramatic example of an intention. In this photo of Linda, my intention was simpler. It was just to make some image that showed feminine strength and the beauty in that. So this time I was answering questions like, what perspective will help Linda appear more powerful? And part of the answer to that was a low perspective. Many of my photos are portraits because, that's what I do most of the time. I make portraits, but intentional photography isn't limited to portraiture. It's about rationalizing the intention behind a photo, and you can do that with landscapes too. When I found myself standing at the foot of this waterfall in the south of Iceland, I felt humbled, a tiny, insignificant speck when compared to the immensity and raw power of my natural surroundings. Iceland has this effect on people. It's an otherworldly place. It takes your breath away. And I wanted my photo to communicate this feeling. So I made it my intention. I made it my why. And I ran every creative question through it. In this case, I chose the widest lens I had because it showed the contrast more clearly between the huge waterfall and the tiny human figures. Again, because I was trying to make the human aspect appear insignificant, I ended up waiting an hour for the crowd to thin out, so there were only a few people left. That couple made the contrast between nature and humanity more pronounced than if I'd left the scene full of tourists. Basically, I made the image the visual expression of my intention. And that's useful because when someone sees your photo on Instagram or wherever, all they have to go on is your photo. They probably won't read the caption. I doubt they were there when you took the photo in the first place. Really, the only option left to explain why you felt compelled to take a photo in the first place is with visual language. And look, this way of making photos isn't going to appeal to everyone. It's a slow, deliberate process. I'm just presenting it as an option here because, well, it's the best way I've found to communicate meaning through my photos, and that's something that's important to me. Using visual language to express an intention will make your photos more cohesive. Every element will play a part in communicating that intention. The light, the pose, the colors, the atmospheric effects, they all become bound together. The more you question your creative decisions, the more your visual language skills develop, the more closely your photos will reflect your intentions.